Welcome to Home Health 360, a podcast presented by Care. I'm your host, Jeff Howell, and this is the show about learning from the best in home health care from around the globe. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Home Health 360, where we speak with leaders in home care and home health from across the globe. Today, we have two of the top executives at one of the largest and most successful home care franchises in the United States, Firstlight Home Care. We have the Vice President of Strategy out of Nashville, Tennessee, but in the head office today in Cincinnati, with over 20 years of healthcare operations and business development experience, Carrie Pendley. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
And also out of corporate HQ with over 30 years experience in the franchise world, mostly at ServiceMaster, we have, as of a year and a half ago, the president, and as of last month in June, the new CEO, Glee McAnanley. McAnanley. Did I get that right the second time?
You know what? With a first name like Glee, Jeff, I never have to worry about last names.
Right.
So people usually say, is that your real name? Is it a nickname? So then I think that's their way of covering up. They can't say my last name either. So don't worry about it. Okay.
Well, we've officially crowned you as the one name brand in home care.
There you go. Right. It's worked really well for some other people in their life. So Glee is good, but it's McAnanley is what it is.
McAnanley. Got it.
You got it.
Okay, well, why don't you guys tell us how long has Firstlight been around and give us a little bit of background on the company?
Thanks for letting us be with you today, Jeff. We are privileged to be able to talk about Firstlight Home Care and actually sold our first franchise in 2010. And since then, we now have a footprint of over 200 franchises across these United States. And just a couple of years ago, expanded into a country I think you know well, which is Canada.
That's right. And strictly non-medical, what kind of service lines do you guys cover?
Well, we started that way, Jeff. But Carrie, I'll let you talk about a little bit of our metamorphosis and journey as we have traveled down this home care path.
Sure. Historically, Jeff, like most home care organizations, specifically franchise home care organizations, our system historically predominantly has been non-medical home care provider with private pay and VA. However, over the past 3 years, I've been with Firstlight going on 5 years. And specifically the past 3 years, we have been ultra focused on more of our third-party payer opportunities. Examples of that would be Medicare Advantage, workers' comp, employee assistance programs, private contracts, et cetera. So with the focus, and we can talk more too about especially, where the industry is now, where it's going, everything that's derived from the pandemic, we absolutely are kind of having like a shift, if you will, in our system around, because doing private pay model is vastly different than third-party payer models. So combining and mirroring the two along with education and support for our franchisees. So we're definitely focused on growing the third-party payer opportunities. And along with that, again, historically been non-medical. However, we, over the past couple of years, have put a lot of additional resources into focusing on providing skilled nursing services and case management as well. And so that is a current focus. It is a strategic plan of ours. And we brought on some additional resources, like I said, to help with that plan. And when I say skilled nursing, Jeff, I'm talking about what's generally referred to as private duty skilled nursing. So it's going to be non-Medicare certified nursing. And in the states where licensure allows us to do that.
Got it. That was going to be my next question.
So that's where we are today and where we continue to expand. And again, we can talk about, but the pandemic has just opened up a lot of opportunities, actually.
Oh, for sure. So out of those third parties, what would you say is the biggest bucket for you guys right now?
Well, VA, obviously being a third party payer, is the largest third party payer bucket that we are in. But we actually, the workers' comp is second, and with Medicare Advantage coming up right third along with that. But really, Jeff, that's system wide. It can be very market specific too, depending on which third party contracts we have in place in specific markets.
Yeah. So I counted about 40 awards on your website. What's the secret sauce on creating such an award-winning company?
Well, two words, I would say, and that is our motto around here, which is franchisee first. We firmly believe that our franchisees should be able to focus on caregivers and clients, and being part of a franchise system that really enables us to do everything in the background that will help support franchisees. And so I've kind of had a unique experience. You mentioned, Jeff, at the top that I'd spent a number of years at a company called ServiceMaster. My husband and I owned franchises in the service business where you cross the threshold into people's homes in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. And home care to me is similar in the fact that we take care of people so that they can age in place at their home. And having been a franchisee, I totally understand what a good franchisor looks like and what we need as a franchisee from our franchisor. And then I've also spent at least 12 years on the franchisor side. And so I always say I have a franchisee heart, but a franchisor head. And what I mean by that is I will look at things, and even if it's only affecting 10 franchisees in the marketplace, to me, that is something that we as a franchisor need to be paying attention to, and really may need to build some process around or look at a strategy a little differently. So I just have a real passion of being in the service business, and home care fits into that. And we have really looked for franchisees to join our system that have that same passion, a culture of care for both their caregivers and their clients. So we also have been very fortunate from our inception with Bill and Bernard, who founded our company and had invested money so that we wouldn't have to be worried about which franchisees we brought on board first. So we've been slow and steady in our growth and have been very intentional of who we have selected to partner with in the different marketplaces to become franchisees. So I would say that's our secret sauce is franchisee first and being very intentional with figuring out the best people to represent Firstlight Home Care in their communities.
Carrie, do you have anything to add?
No, I would, other than, yes, actually, Jeff, yes, I would. I always have something to add.
I was going to say, Carrie, of course you have something to add. You usually do.
I know, I knew she was going to say that. I generally always have something to add, Jeff.
You do. You do. Yeah.
No, and I think also, again, like I said, I'm just going on my 5th year with Firstlight, but when you talk about the secret sauce and Glee's talking about franchisee first, really that is what we are living, breathing, and speaking at the franchisor, the corporate level. And so I personally, I've been in this industry for over 20 years, like you said, but Firstlight is my first experience with franchising. So when you talk about the awards and stuff, and I'm hearing what Glee's saying, I can echo that, but it's been very personally rewarding for me being a part of a franchise system, and the awards, I will say, are very well deserved, but seeing what truly a franchise system can bring to a person and their family around where they want to go as a business owner, and especially in this wonderful industry that I love so much, which is home care. So,
well, that's a good segue. I was on your website and you have this really nice interactive map of the U.S. on your website. Can you elaborate on some of the opportunities, the markets that you have in the U.S. that are still very attractive?
Well, yes, because we are looking for the right people always to join our system. A couple areas, Chicagoland, Phoenix. I think people know Phoenix is an attractive marketplace for retired individuals. And since that seems to be a market that is attracted by home care, that's always a good place to be. Along with Southeast Florida. Southern California, Northeast Texas, we are actually looking to expand in. And one of the most beautiful states in the world, we would love to have a franchisee in Vermont. And my background, my whole family is from Montana. Now, I know you're going to say there aren't enough people there, but there really are. And I would love to have a franchise in Montana so that I can go visit them. And I probably have some family members that as they age could probably use some of that service. So those are some of the top marketplaces. But as Carrie mentioned earlier, with more mature home care franchises that are out there, we really do serve more restricted territories. And so we are blessed that we have some great territories that are still available for franchisees to join our team.
And what goes into defining a territory?
Well, generally people. That's why sometimes people don't think Montana is a great place, but we've got room. Our general territory is built around a minimum of 250,000 in the population, with a minimum of 10% seniors. And then what we look at is income level as well. And we both look at average as well as median.
Okay.
And as you said, we've got interactive maps. And when we're sitting down with people that are looking to invest in Firstlight Home Care, we've got all of those maps that are predefined. So we've got territories that they can look at that shows our availability and also shows them all of the demographics as they're looking at it.
Yeah, when we talk about the opportunity for expansion that we have too, related to, if you're a person looking at franchise system for home care, I mentioned the skilled nursing earlier, Jeff. So again, we're seeing more and more individuals that have been in the healthcare arena or field, but are ready to come out and own their own business. So those type individuals specifically are often interested in offering skilled nursing services from inception of their business. And not every system will allow you to do that or is able to support you in doing that from inception. So that's where we've also, again, when I mentioned we've put a lot of resources and time over the last couple of years to develop the skilled nursing support and training. That's where we see that being an opportunity for expansion too.
Right. And it seems to me that it's just the natural cycle of things that you get into non-medical home care because it's the easiest way to get into the business. Then you want to grow it. Usually the easiest way to grow is to get a franchise model. And so the franchises of the industry are predominantly non-medical home care. And it's almost like you need to get to a certain size and scale
Correct.
to have the ability to support getting into these other payers and other service lines.
Correct. And that is typically what you see. However, again, depending. So if you're someone who's worked in the middle, we're seeing, for example, we've got some recent franchisees that are actually nurse practitioners themselves, or were hospital administrators for years and things like that. So again, those individuals, it is very interesting because skilled nursing is an opportunity they would sometimes like to pursue from the beginning of their business.
And they watched the change in home care over time. And, one thing we say here now, Jeff, at Firstlight Home Care is not now. If there's an area that we want to get into as far as service in that skilled nursing that Carrie refers to, because we used to say never, we would never do this. And I think one of the things the pandemic has taught us is that everything changes and it may change quickly. And so you really need to be thinking about different areas that we can service, adjacencies to what we are presently servicing in the marketplace. And if we just don't have time to put the strategy and the thinking power against it, we say, not now. So we've taken that word never out of our vocabulary.
Yeah. Never say never.
Never say never. And yet we say it a lot. Right?
Speaking of pivoting and the pandemic, what are some ways that some changes you guys have had to make during the pandemic?
Well, March of 2020 happened pretty quickly in hindsight. When you think about, I actually was on a plane from Las Vegas to back home. I lived in Memphis at the time. And I remember being in the airport and we were all glued to televisions as we were watching, flight start to cancel. And, as soon as I got home, it just started shutting down very quickly. And Firstlight Home Care, as soon as that happened, we are treating people's moms and dads in their homes. And we're watching the news with what's happening in facilities and things. And that was the beauty to me of being a franchisor at that point in time. Firstlight was able to start daily phone calls. And I don't think anybody knew there wasn't a PPP at that point in time, right? But the payroll protection program became extremely important and it changed daily on the government websites. And so we had legal people looking at those things and franchisees. Hey, we had our best attendance on franchisee phone calls during the pandemic, because they really needed help. And then you're trying to figure out PPE. And so you're trying to figure out the initials that go back and forth, but personal protection equipment. And I want somebody to say those words and those phrases 3 times quickly and make sure they get them correctly. And then you go into the ERTC, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, and business as a franchisee became very complicated. How do we keep caregivers wanting to work in that environment? And one of the things that we were able to stock up on was hand sanitizer. And so just as a little advertisement, we have a lot of hand sanitizer now and some that's about ready to expire. So anyone who is listening on this podcast, we will happily send you some of our hand sanitizer because we were able to still get that. And so that happened on the franchisor side. But Carrie, you and your team were working on how do we equip our franchisees to be able to really work with our clients and our caregivers. So why don't you tell what we were doing in that aspect?
Right. So same as Glee, was explaining, it does seem like it really was overnight, but we had to, as far as our delivery of care, we had to immediately completely regroup, revamp, and almost on a daily, if not a weekly basis for sure, revisit the way we're delivering services and all operational processes. And so it just completely was a shift in all operational aspects, right? Whether you're a franchisee or not, just period, being in the industry.
Yeah.
So that was, and obviously, as Glee said, part of my team is our clinical and compliance team. So it was daily CDC monitoring. I mean, just all hands on deck to support in any way we could and keeping up with the everyday shift in information and change in information and things like that. So the delivery of care model, I mean, obviously and operationally, just complete shift. The other part of that, though, as Glee mentioned, our national accounts department, which is national accounts team, which is in my department as well. It was amazing because, again, I think all of us now have learned, right, we can do where before it was these account meetings or, presentations, everything had to be done in person. So immediately overnight, now we become best friends with Zoom or whatever platform you were using. But we completely had to start looking at our national account opportunities differently, too. Like now, all of a sudden, COVID testing is a service opportunity, especially if you have nurses in some area, and what that looked like. So I say, I'm very cautious in saying this, but if there ever was a silver lining, I'm going to say that we view in the rearview mirror of the pandemic and what we went through with the, especially the peak of it, it was that there were opportunities brought for our franchisees and our system in general that we had never seen before. And it's also allowed, again, I've had these conversations for years and years with trying to talk to post-acute partners and collaborating in the communities and nationwide. That now, since the pandemic, not that it wasn't happening before, but since, the pandemic, those conversations are highlighted and of importance, and there seems to be more effort in our industry for the collaboration and truly whatever we can do to develop models to allow individuals to remain in their home. So again, when you talk about pivoting, there was a lot of pivoting that went on, but I also see that it pivoted to some opportunities as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Well, I love the idea of you saying like the COVID testing, it's an opportunity, right? So every problem has opportunities within it.
So true. Mm-hmm.
Staffing opportunities. So for, organizations, home care organizations that will do staffing or staffing contracts, that became heightened also during the pandemic.
Well, on that topic, caregiver recruitment and retention is a challenge in the best of times. What are your thoughts on, how's the industry best able to tackle this issue? Just a small, tiny little question.
If we had the answer to that, we would be on vacation on our yachts and
we'd be doing this podcast from the Bahamas.
we would, Jeff. We would.
Yeah, exactly. We're wrestling with it, just like everybody else is. We had a phone call yesterday with our National Advisory Committee, which is made up of 15 franchisees from around the country. And we spent a significant amount of time talking about, what does recruitment and retention look like today? And we have been trying to just add to the way we have been doing recruiting and retention. And as we talked yesterday, we said, you know what, we need to whiteboard this entire process. We've got to rethink what recruiting and retention looks like in this environment and just start all over. And so it's a project that we've been talking about for the last couple of months. It's going to take us through the end of 2023, but as soon as we've got that, nailed, boy, we're going to be off on those yachts, right, Carrie? Because we'll have solved recruiting and retention.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a good answer for you on that. It's a struggle. We know it. We've acknowledged it, and we just have to really, like I said, rethink it. And I think it comes down to training as well, though. I think we have to find, where are we going to look for caregivers and what does that training look like? And just hiring anybody in this day and age has become a challenge. And we have found we've got to get to them quicker and we've got to ask more about them and tell them less about us. And so we're just looking at that entire strategy and rethinking it. But if you'd like to help us with that, Jeff, we're looking for great partners that could help.
Oh, I was waiting for you to ask me what all of my answers are. When I ran into you both in Chicago for the Home Healthcare News Conference, there were a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting that I took away.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
one was the company that condensed the hiring process down from days down to hours for hiring caregivers. I thought that was really interesting. Maybe hours is maybe even a little bit too quick. I don't know what steps they're taking, but just sort of with no code tools these days and just the way that technology can work with automations, that I thought that was really interesting, is really condensing and taking out all of the friction in the application process to start with. And the other thing that I was surprised by was Helen at Care Academy was saying how there were 80,000 people that applied for nursing school last year that got turned away because all of the trainers went off to become travel nurses. Right. And it's like, she has a program where the caregivers can level up and, move into nursing degrees by getting credits and kind of moving. And I thought that was really interesting, sort of creating like caring for the caregiver and creating a career path.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, let's shift gears here. What is a trend in the industry that is under the radar screen and not enough people are talking about it?
Well, I think Carrie kind of talked about that in one of your questions before with the third-party payer Medicare Advantage. But Carrie, you kind of talk about how difficult sometimes it is to do Medicare Advantage. And as a franchisor, Carrie's team has really helped our franchisees be able to sign up for different programs, help them understand what third-party payer contracts look like, and how to really work, I think, better in that arena. But Carrie, you're certainly more an expert on that arena.
Right. In regards to Medicare Advantage, too, I would say under the radar, no, not really. Maybe depending on who you're talking to. Underutilized, and just for the reasons Glee mentioned. Yes, and especially when you're talking home care versus home health. So when you're talking about the personal care piece of it, it is, we've all been, what I said, I was so excited, when finally there's the opportunity. I've, been one of those people that's gone to DC for advocacy work for years for many home and community-based programs. But so, yes, it seemed like a small victory, at least, when Medicare Advantage did allow personal care to be covered in their supplemental benefits. However, I often refer to it like this. It is what it is. It was like barely dipping your toe in the water. So these contracts or these opportunities around Medicare Advantage came with very operational obstacles in play. So, for example, and I know, Jeff, you've probably heard it on many of your podcasts or just in the industry meetings and conferences, but it's, rolling the contracts out and the opportunities. What you typically saw were very, very short visits, so 2-hour visits in some regards, and lower pay rates, reimbursement rates than necessarily, definitely less than private pay and even VA in most or some areas. So when you're looking at a limited pool of employees and workforce, and yet you're looking at reimbursement that's low, it doesn't make it very appealing from a business decision. Even though these individuals, need care, you got to start making business decisions around your employee and what resources you have. So I am, glad we immediately wanted to seize the opportunity. We did, work with our franchisees to understand it's the long game. This isn't a short game. So for those of you that want to do the long game, we are here to support you. We will, work with you and help you understand and deliver well on Medicare Advantage as well as other third-party payers. However, I will say that in the contracts we have in place, the current Medicare Advantage contracts, over the 3 years, we have seen things such as more flexibility, I'm going to say, in the way that the services are prescribed. So maybe instead of saying you have 2-hour visits and you get 31 of those a month, it is more flexible into here's what's available, use it how you need to. Now that's very few plans that are looking at that. But the other thing, we're starting to see some some rate increases, and especially if you're a provider of choice. So, we have numerous offices that in their markets are absolutely a provider of choice. So in leveraging that payer, that health plan or third-party administrator for the health plan is willing to pay a little more because your fulfillment rate is better. You're making sure those individuals get taken care of. So definitely Medicare Advantage under the radar, not necessarily. People are definitely talking about it, but it's the utilization of it that maybe is not where we want it to be. And it's because of the operational issues and the reimbursement issues and things like that.
Got it.
Well, and I'd also say, Carrie, at Firstlight Home Care, I think that this is a great area for us, and we're leaning into it because as a franchisor in a franchise system, with these third-party payers, they're looking for footprint coverage. And so we can provide standard service that they can expect over a large footprint, which makes it much easier for these third-party payers. And so that's one of the areas that we've got Carrie's team, as well as our operations team. We've got a whole team out there that Mark Vanos leads with business coaches that work with our franchisees in individual markets. And so as we look at some of these opportunities, we then go in and actually work with that franchisee to really help them understand the benefits of some of these programs to them.
And it's also like anything else, in order to advocate for, flexibility, increased rates, it's all going to depend on, you got to have outcomes, right? So that's where, technology playing into that, Jeff, which you're all too familiar with. But we need to show health plans. We need to show third-party payers utilizing our services. Here's how this, reduces hospitalizations. Here's how this, we can track change in condition. This is how you just metrics anyway around that and the cost savings around that. So that's where also as an industry, and again, I'm preaching to the choir here, this, but in the historically home care, the non-medical side of the industry hasn't been necessarily phenomenal by any means about true data and metrics and outcomes. And that's where I think we have to focus, and we have to be there, and we have to be able to provide that information. And that's going to be through technology systems.
And I think the number is something like a third of home care agencies aren't doing any kind of reporting at all.
Mm-hmm.
So from FMAP funding to self-directed care to value-based pay, Medicare Advantage, industry consolidation and technological advancements, if you guys had to say, what are your thoughts on the one trend that would actually probably carry the biggest impact in the industry over the next 3 to 4 years? What do you think that might be?
I think you just answered your own question, Jeff, with your comment at the end of the last one.
Yeah,
I think you did. It's we've got to have metrics and outcomes to report on our services that we provide in the industry. And again, technology is what gets us there.
And we've got to show the benefit of keeping someone at home and what we can do there.
Yeah, that's right. And everyone does prefer to not only age in place, but the pandemic has put this enormous spotlight on home care. The silver lining, as you say, Carrie, is there's probably the brand awareness of home care went from 0 to 60 pretty quickly over the course of the pandemic.
Well said.
And I think that the metrics and technology are going to help us be able to really tell the story better of why someone does better coming home and being able to be there after a hip replacement rather than going somewhere else to be able to do the rehab. We kid around, and I'm going to do a shout out because I'm certainly hoping that Mr. Pendley will listen to this podcast with his daughter on it. But we have Mr. Pendley, who is our case study for a number of situations, because although Carrie's been in this industry for over 20 years, when she now is trying to work with her dad and find care for him in different situations, she's looking at from a completely different perspective as someone that needs to help provide the care for a loved one, as opposed to being the one that actually provides the care. And when you think about someone being at home and their dog is there with them and Charlie can sit on your lap while you're recovering, that's really, really important at different times. And it's like, those are some things that you can't measure. But if someone's sitting in the hospital and they're wondering about their dog and who's taking care of, their animals at home, or their cat, or whatever animal it is that keeps them company for 24 hours a day, that is something that I don't think that we're thinking about sometimes with some of those outcomes.
Yeah, sure. And I think the invention of Medicare Advantage is a tip of the cap from the Medicare world to say, like the social determinants of health come from these personal care visits. And that's where everything starts with. So,
right. Yep.
So it looks like we're almost up against our time here. I'll get you guys out of here on this. Give us a reason to be optimistic about the future of home care.
I would say from my perspective, and I've kind of just summarizing what I've said throughout our discussion today, but I mean, again, me being an individual that has been in this industry for quite a while, it's very optimistic because of the opportunities that we have now. And as Glee said, I'm from a personal experience with our Mr. Pendley, our case study we're using for a lot around Firstlight.
Mm-hmm, we sure are.
He trying to assist, and for my father personally to remain in his home as long as he possibly can when he lives alone. Everything that's going on in our industry right now and all the collaboration, all the waivers and movement to allow these models to help people recover at home, have treatment at home, receive urgent care, mobile urgent care at home, or whatever that may be. But that's where the future is going, in my opinion. And I'm excited that we have an opportunity to be a part of that. So by far, that's why I'm so optimistic.
Yeah, I'm equally optimistic. And I'm sitting here just thinking about the last year and a number of changes that we've gone through here at Firstlight Home Care, and even a partnership that we have been able to create with Matt Paxton, who has a show on PBS called Legacy List. And as he has done research on people aging in place, he said, 93% of people that are retired actually move to a smaller home, either in their community or near their kids. They don't necessarily go to a facility. And so I think with a statistic like that, it is showing that people really do want to be at home. And I have found myself as the target of a number of our messaging. I am the adult daughter. I've got, parents that are aging. They're remarkable. They are doing well now. But we know at some point in time, we're going to have to think about how we take care of my folks. And my mother-in-law is in an independent facility doing well. But those are questions that I'm facing personally, and I know a number of my friends are. So I know the market is there, and I am really excited about franchising in this space because we can take people that have a real heart for the elderly and have a compassion for this kind of work and build a system around it. So we're all about culture of care. Like I said earlier, we want our franchisees to be able to focus on the clients and caregivers. And, Jeff, you asked about recruiting and retention. I think part of our secret sauce is going to be around the fact that we can really tie someone's vocation, what they do in work, to what their mission or passion is with taking care of people. And finding an intersection like that is very rare in your work these days, and something that I've been privileged to be able to do almost throughout my whole career, and has been something that I've looked for. So that would be what I think is very exciting about the home care business is we get to take care of people's moms and dads, and we get to help people that can build a career around passion for helping others.
And I'll give you a few reasons as well. Some of the things that I've learned today. Love the fact that when you guys were going through the crisis of the pandemic, that you were in such a great position to provide that infrastructure and support to your network who desperately needed it at that time, and that you've taken this slow and steady approach to building Firstlight, and now you've matured to the stage of looking at different payers and different service lines and helping out folks in different ways. And my biggest takeaway from this episode, I loved how you said, Glee, the having the heart of a franchisee and the head of a franchisor. So I think the future is very bright for Firstlight. So thank you to both of you. Carrie, we're going to have to work on you having a one name brand in the industry as well. So let's get moving on that.
I know, what, right?
And thank you both for being here today.
Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Home Health 360 is presented by AlayaCare. First off, I want to thank our amazing guests and listeners. To get more episodes, you can go to alayacare.com/Home Health 360. That's spelled Home Health 360. Or search Home Health 360 on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. The easiest way to stay up to date on our new shows is to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have a newsletter you can sign up for on alayacare.com/Home Health 360 to get alerts for new shows and more valuable content from AlayaCare right into your inbox. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.